Hopefully well. Hopefully. We're a little off-center today, aren't we? Let's fix that really quickly. Oh. Oh. Right there. And then we adjust the seat. We center ourselves. That's the real way to do it. All right. All right. Let's see. How is everyone doing this fine Friday? Everyone ready for just a little bit of news mixed with a little bit of sarcasm, mixed with a little bit of, I don't know where I was going. Something. I'm going to give everybody just a little bit of time to filter in. I am starting late though, so we're going to have to book it through the news. I think this is maybe the best prepared I've been for the news. I know I'm late, and part of it was because I was putting the final touches on it, but I'm hopefully doing a little bit of storytelling with the news. Going to hopefully make it a little bit more fun while doing it. It's definitely not the end goal. I definitely have a lot more to figure out, but it's definitely I worked hard on it. So there we go. All right. I was up late. I was up very late. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me for the news this week. We have a lot of exciting topics to cover. The ones that are first on the docket are all about security. We're going to talk a lot about security. And we have a couple interesting things in the security work field that I think, or two things specifically in the security field that I think you guys are going to want to know about. The next thing on our topic is Langchain, something we've actually been using on stream to do just a little chat botting. And there was some things that we felt about Langchain when we were using it, or at least when I was using it on stream. And, sometimes it's just I'm getting into a new repository, but this was actually really interesting that I found this. And so we're going to cover that. We have a Google Kills section. That's always fun. We always have a Google Kills something section. But we'd actually have something to talk about it. We have a couple open source releases that we're going to discuss. Anybody here use it's our two favorite languages. See if you guys can't guess which languages we're talking about before we get to them. And then we're going to dive into some more AI different things from Anthropic's 3.7 release to the QWQ release, which is maybe another step forward in the reinforcement learning that was done previously with R1, with the R1 release. So we're going to see that. Then we have a really encouraging open source thing that I wanted to cover. It's a project I didn't know anything about, but has 15,000 GitHub stars, which is more GitHub stars than anything that I've made. So kudos to them. A brand new Kubernetes project developed by Microsoft, Google, and AWS. Did you hear that right? Yeah, we have that coming up. And then we're gonna finish this off with the Mozilla scandal. That's what I'm gonna call it for right now. I want to give you maybe the most fair and bland take on it. I want to kind of cover what happened, why it happened, and I'm going to, in the end, kind of give my take on what you can do as an open source project. It's hard to be an open source project, and it's hard to be an open source project that's trying to be opinionated while still providing a compelling user interface. Not in defense of any one thing, but I've seen this mistake be done a couple of times. And so I'm going to give my opinion on that, and you guys can just deal with it. All right, let's jump into it. What mistake? Is that how you deal with it? You just ask what mistake? Mistake? I made a mistake. I'm gonna try that with my boss. Oh, you joined late. Well, that's the mistake. You've found the mistake. Joining late. I was already late. How do you join late when I'm this late? All right. I just covered the topics that we're going to cover today. I found this. Okay, so let's start with security. There was 2 patches that I saw coming out that looked interesting for people that leverage this. So Amazon released this notification issue with Amazon Workspaces, Amazon AppStream 2.0, and Amazon DCV. These 2 CVEs. And this basically allowed issues with their Amazon Workspaces, which is basically rent a computer in the cloud. And these were 2, it affected both Apple and Windows and Linux. To my understanding, affected versions are Windows, Mac, and Linux. And so if you were using this actually was a pretty big deal, which allowed man-in-the-middle attacks on your remote computer. So this was actually a pretty big deal that was released. I am a little late on finding it, so that's kind of on me. But I wanted to let you guys know just in case you're there, because it has been fixed. And so cool. Those were the two security things that I thought could affect you all. Did you guys see anything else in security? Was there anything? There was no Spectre meltdowns that I saw. Hopefully I don't miss one of those. All right. Well, let's jump into Langchain then. Langchain is something that we used on stream for 3 streams. 2 streams? 2 or 3 streams. And the goal of Langchain was to make building AI agents easier. Now, one thing we had a problem with in our streams was sometimes the documentation seemed to be wrong or to be in conflict with each other. It is moving really, really fast, and there was some stuff like that. But this is Langchain, and what it's trying to do, we're help you ship Langchain apps to production faster. Check out this, blah, blah, blah. Another thing that I noticed when I was using it was Langsmith was basically Langchain is impossible to debug, and our monetization is to make it debuggable. Langsmith was like, hey, you can pay us and we'll help you debug the app, or like we have tools to debug the app. Which I actually called out as kind of a red flag, as your monetization is we built a thing that's undebuggable, which in my opinion is not a great monetization policy. I know monetization policies are difficult, but I noticed that. And I hadn't heard anybody else complain about it, so like, I don't know. And I haven't had a problem debugging my crappy little stuff. I've never done anything complicated. But then I came across this. Why developers are quitting Langchain. Sorry, can't say it for some reason. I had to look it up. Its star history, it hasn't stopped growing at this point, but it has slowed down through 2024. If you look at the start of 2024, it has slowed way down. Now it's still hitting just at 100,000 as of today, but it is absolutely slowing down. I wanted to try to validate the claim that developers are quitting Langchain. I can't, and a lot of times, even if these people start it back here, they're not going to unstar it. So, this isn't a perfect science here, but there is some evidence that it's slowing down. Langchain once held promise to go to framework, blah, blah, blah. And basically, Langchain is overcomplicating things for no reason. That's actually one of the things that I had seen. So yeah, I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were. What are your thoughts on Langchain? what are they moving to? So that actually is a really good point. A co-founder of Every Inc. said, Langchain is where good AI projects go to die. He added that experienced developers call it the worst library they've ever worked with due to its bloated abstractions and black box design. He advised developers to build their own stack instead. You'll spend less time fighting someone else's broken work. The big deal I have is there really isn't a good alternative. Now, there are some in recent times, but some of the problems that people are talking about, you can't know if these new projects are going to not have the same problem. So the unstable API and constantly changing underneath you, that's kind of part of being bleeding edge technology, right? That's part of, like, if you were on Apple, the first iPhone, the development platform has changed drastically. It's way more stable now. If you were on Swift version 1, that language changed so hard until Swift version 6, it's not even funny. So being bleeding edge is always going to have that, but that's one of people's complaints. Another one is that it was difficult. One second. I'm going to paraphrase, but basically the documentation never matched what was actually, because the thing was changing so fast, documentation wasn't being kept up. So this actually goes through a lot of other things, but there isn't a whole lot of, so this is the pedantic AI, also faces similar issues when it's looking. Pocket Flow, I've never looked at much, so I don't really know. So maybe Pocket Flow and Lambda Index is Llama Index. I don't know why I said Lambda. Llama Index are two we should try on stream. So I don't know. I'm going to actually finish the app we were making. We were making a little demo thing, and it was fun, and we were learning. We made it remember history and whatnot. So we're going to continue with Langchain a little bit. But I wanted to let you guys know that sentiment is shifting. This building it, I actually like this. This is kind of my mantra, is do it the hardest way. Build my own stack. I almost wonder if this isn't a good way to learn really, really well. Is be like, we're just going to build our own stack to do these things and figure out the things. So maybe we do this. Semantic kernel, but it's also changing quickly. Russell, I agree with any, I don't hold Langchain to this because that's of any bleeding edge early access thing. And so I feel like it's a little disingenuous to be like, oh yeah, it's not ready for production. Right, it's brand new. We get it. They don't know what, when I release an API, I've released hundreds of APIs. It's not brand new. So even if the API is brand new, I can do a pretty good API because I've done it so many times. They're doing something brand new, which is also a brand new project. So yeah, it's, to me, that's par for the course. They do need to keep docs up to date. Bad documentation is one of the most frustrating things you can ever experience, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I can't tell you how many times we, in our Langchain streams, have hit documentation that wasn't quite right and didn't, we couldn't copy and paste the example because it didn't quite work. That did happen, and that was probably the most frustrating portion of that stream. I couldn't copy and paste. My goodness. I know that part of Agile is that people will say working product over extensive documentation. I think one thing that they miss in that is correct documentation. I think that if you had to put a caveat there, is you cannot forego documentation and you cannot have incorrect documentation. Those two things are just not acceptable. And I don't think the people that were coming up with the Agile Manifesto were thinking about those things. But yeah. All right. Google was added again. Something got Googled. So we're in the Google Kills section. Let me know if there was anything else I missed. Skype is shutting down after 2 decades. I didn't know Skype was still around, but Microsoft has run it for 14 years. This is par for the course of how long Microsoft bought the service for $8.5 billion. Oh, gosh. So Skype is going away. And I guess it wasn't Google that killed it. My bad. I just have a Google Kills section, so I had to squeeze it in. Now, while we're talking about things that got killed, let's talk about things that are breathing a new life into it. Microsoft 360 with Teams. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this makes sense. They're pushing Teams. Teams has everything, if not more, than what Skype had to offer. It really makes sense that you're consolidating those two things, honestly. Like, there's no reason to duplicate work or anything like that. It does make sense. All right. Let's talk about things that are getting a little bit of a new life, little wind in their sails. Announcing Rust 1.85. Actually, in my last stream, I updated to Rust 1.85, which is really, really, really cool because when you update it, you can actually go to 2024 workspaces, which is pretty cool, and you can test out these features. Now, I have to say, if you're not into Rust, join me tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are going to try to run some just-in-time compilation of languages in Rust using Wasmer. So we're going to attempt it. I've read a little bit of how to do it, but I haven't actually done it ahead of time, so there's going to be a lot of mistakes and turmoil, and you should join me tomorrow as we try to do that. It should be fun. So, Rust 2024. That's the big thing. The 2024 edition is out. And yeah. This gives us some new features around lifetimes and traits. I said traits, but lifetimes, yeah. And we need to actually go over some of this stuff. So changes the default capturing of parameters by impl traits types when use is not present. If let temporary scope changes the scope of temporaries for let expressions. These are actually some maybe big deals. If you've written a lot of Rust, you should know about these things as they're coming out. I think a lot of people aren't looking at a ton of these. None of them are too big. The unsafe extern blocks. Extern blocks are now require the unsafe keyword. This isn't really a big deal, and it's going to be really easy to update your code because you just got to slap unsafe in front of extern. So a lot of these aren't huge deals, but they're good to know about. Some of the big ones that people are really excited about is async closures. Rust now supports asynchronous closures like async closures, which return futures when called. This works like an async function, which also captures value from the local environment. So it works just like a asynchronous function, but the regular closure function, this also comes with 3 analysis traits in the standard library: async func, async func mute, and func1. So they did this. This is actually pretty cool and is going to allow you to do some pretty awesome stuff with asynchronous closures. Yeah, I think this is pretty cool, and a lot of people are very excited about it. So yeah, the rest of this we can cover. We'll be covering it some tomorrow as we go. The big one that I'm going to cover tomorrow is the if let temporary scope, and maybe some of the Maybe we'll be bitten by some of the lifetime stuff. So we'll see. Another language right up there. Tippity-toppity favorite of ours. TypeScript 5.8 beta speeds up program load times. And yeah, it's getting a release candidate. It's I've heard a lot of people are actually really excited about it. I don't know that much about it. I try to avoid TypeScript, but I try to report about all of them. Not all of them, really, but it's cool. It's out there. You should check it out. I guess there was a lot of work done on making it a lot more efficient, a lot faster, which seems really good. I can never complain about those. It's hard to say more about like, hey, it takes half the time to load your project. That's awesome. I can't say much more. Previous editions of TypeScript, it sucked to load your app more. I don't know. There we go. Oh, this time we kind of got rid of cloud section. Cloud is now sprinkled about like salt on everything else. On everything else. All right, let's talk a little bit about open source. All right, this was something that I've not actually seen before, and it was kind of a cool story, and I wanted to show it off to you all so you could see their success. And also, it's a new project that I've never seen. Have you guys heard of Wasp? If you haven't, you can join my boat. I didn't hear of it either until just a few days ago. Good day, Sergeant Pepper. How are you? From You Will Fail to 15,000 GitHub stars, the story of Wasp, a Laravel for JavaScript full stack framework. Now, this is a loaded statement, but let's read on. Basically, the story that's here, and I'm going to, again, share this with you all. The story that's here is basically one that I want to focus on the people and not what they've done. It was two brothers who basically went to work on this full time. And they were told twice by Y Combinator, no. They worked on it this year, and then they did an alpha launch. And then finally, it was like 1.5 years later, YC said, okay, we'll take you in. And the really, really cool part is they were basically told that a DSL for web app development is one of the holy grail ideas for programmers interested in building tools for other programmers. And they were basically told, look, I can't make that bigger. Can I make that bigger? Yeah, I can make that bigger. Look, a lot of people have tried to solve it. And this is a staggering blow, because when somebody tells you this, it means they have no confidence that you're doing anything different or see it in any different way. And I could see being super disheartened by this. And these are people who took criticism and turned it into this, which is cool. Which is very cool. I'm going to even ignore these here. This right here is a cool trajectory for two people to get. It was curving upward even without the use of Mage AI and OpenSAS. Really, really, really awesome. So, anyways, if you guys haven't heard of Wasp, why the Wasp haven't you? Go check it out. I'm actually going to give it a check. I'm actually going to we're going to use OpenSAS and try to use Wasp in OpenSAS some point in the future. Probably a fun stream during the week where I just give it a shot. But I wanted to give it a shout out. Good job to these guys to keep on and doing something that seems pretty cool. Talking about big open source projects, we have a collaboration of the lifetime. The big three clouds came together to simplify the developer experience on Kubernetes with Crow. That is how it's pronounced, because unlike most projects, this actually gives you a pronunciation guide, which I kind of realized I don't like. I like just making up however I want to like how to pronounce it. I don't want somebody to tell me how to pronounce it. It's like my own personal flavor of the open source project. But they're thrilled to announce the collaboration between Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure on Kube Resource Orchestrator. I find this really, really funny. They didn't say Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. They specifically called out the divisions in those companies that collaborated. I don't know if I'm reading more into this than that actually is. Like, it could just be the way the author put it, because those were the teams that did it, but these are divisions inside of a company. They didn't say between Google. Anyways, I found it interesting. Maybe it's nothing. But the Kube Resource Orchestrator is maybe a very interesting tool for you. Platforms and DevOps teams want to define standards for how application teams deploy their workloads, and they want to use Kubernetes as the platform for creating and enforcing those standards. Each service needs to handle everything from resource creation to security configuration, monitoring, setup, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of client-side templating tools that can help with this. Helm, Customize. Oh, I love Customize. But I don't know. People seem to dislike Customize. I like Customize. Oddly, I like Customize, and I probably shouldn't. It's like one of those things down deep where you're like, I shouldn't like this, but I do. Like chocolate. But Kubernetes lacks a native way or a Big Mac. I know. I don't eat McDonald's, and I don't eat Big Macs, but I do like a Big Mac, and I know I shouldn't. You hate Customize? That's acceptable. I understand it. It's like saying that you hate a Big Mac. I understand it. I could not judge you for saying that. And I should hate it too. Okay, but let's move on. But Kubernetes lacks a native way for platform teams to create custom groupings of resources for consumption by end users. Before Crow, welcome to the most hateful stream of 2025 so far. Just get it out of your system. Just let's list the things that you hate, but actually secretly love. I'm assuming when you guys come out here and say those things, you're secretly really, really loving them, and you just you don't have the courage to stand out and say, I love a Big Mac. I know it's terrible for me. I know that it's going to give me indigestion in like 30 minutes. If I'm lucky, it's 30 minutes. I know that it takes a year off my life. I can still say that it's a tasty burger. It's just a tasty burger. No, you definitely hate Helm. Okay, I do too. I'm no. If you guys watch my Kubernetes honest ad, if you watch it in the background where there's the cube landscape, Helm is actually spelled help. Nobody noticed the Easter egg. In all of my honest ads, I put in a few little Easter eggs just for people to catch. Nobody's commented down below that it actually says help. Future ads. There'll be more Easter eggs. You should find them. Comment. Anyway, so it shouldn't be a surprise that I hate Helm. Okay. So basically, I haven't tried it yet, but Crow looks to provide basically a way for platform teams to provide Kubernetes in a safe way to developers. Again, I haven't gotten to try it, so I can't tell you. We could point at pretty charts, and I don't know if you guys have tried to do this before yourselves and what you've had to do, but it seems very interesting. So, yeah, it's a words escape me. It's a open source Apache. It's Apache 2, right? Yeah, Apache 2 project. So cool, awesome. Are they creating virtual Kubernetes? I have no idea. Look, this is breaking news for me. I realized that if I was stalking people, it looks like they've been committed. I don't know if it was just made public though. Most likely it was just made public and they were like, it doesn't tell me when it was made public. If you're talking about the news release, we're talking about January 30th. So I've had about a month that I've missed this. I know. I missed it. But I have only had a week. I only know I've only been aware of it for a week. So yeah. So I don't know how it works yet. We're gonna try and we'll learn on stream how Crow does what Crow does. We will be crowing with the best of them in a little bit, okay? That's all I can guarantee, is that we'll crow with the best of them. Moving on, in open source. This isn't really open source. That was lame. This isn't open source either. That's it. I don't have anything more for open source. These two things, I failed to get them. I failed to slide them into any narrative. It's interesting. They're interesting little tidbits. I'm just going to move them towards the end, and we'll talk about them at the end if we have the time. They're interesting things that happen, but they don't go with anything. Okay. The last thing that we have. All right, we have an ad break. We're going to wait to the end of the ad break to go over the last thing. We want to talk about Firefox and the drama that happened with Firefox. I want to give you my best ability a leveled take. And I'm going to give then my advice if you're an open source project and how they probably could have avoided a lot of this. Now, I say probably because there's no knowing what communities do or say or how they will react to something. But I've seen this happen before and I've been around the block. I would have hoped that Mozilla could have done this better. But yeah. This stream is sponsored by everyone's mutual hatred for Helm. It's so weird. It's such an easy one to like. So many people have used it and hate it all. It's almost like Terraform. I can almost convince everybody that Terraform is terrible. But at first they'll say that they love it because like infrastructure as code, of course. You can't speak badly about that because it saved us from horrible things, and it did. But what they don't realize is like they have Stockholm syndromes. They're loving their captor. Like Terraform has kind of captured them, and they don't think about how it could be better. Almost like Terraform. Okay. Yeah. Helm's worse than Terraform. Just before you guys clip that. Helm's worse than Terraform, in my opinion. Anything else is heresy? I suppose. I live on that fine line, speaking the truth so that others can not get crucified. All right. Terraform Nixlay. Okay, let's not start a holy war. Let's calm down. Let's calm down. All right. So, what happened? Was this got kicked off by Firefox removing something from their FAQ that looked like this. Does Firefox sell your personal data? Nope, never have, never will. And we protect you from many advertisers, as many of the advertisers who do. Firefox, okay, so they removed this statement from their FAQ. And you can go and read the stuff that happened. The other thing in tandem with that was they came out with a privacy policy that they had never had before. And basically said in legal speak, and I'm going to be very clear that this was a legal document, and so they did this to protect themselves. In legal speak, they were a little too vague about what they do with your data. I'm going to give you a example. When you start typing like this, I could do GitHub, and you can see suggestions. These are suggestions from Google search, which means the browser shared my data with my preferred search engine to get recommendations for things I might want to search for. Right? This is the tough part here. This is the tough part here. Because without saying that they will use their data, there's no way to provide those types of features. It's not possible. But I want to take a very pragmatic approach, a very removed approach from here, because the position they're in is difficult. Now, they have come back and said, we're not going to sell your data. And they made that clearer in their stuff. So in the revised, you give Mozilla the right. I brought this article up because they have them side by side. You give Mozilla the rights to operate Firefox. This includes processing data as we described on the Firefox privacy policy. It also includes a non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide license for the purpose of doing as you request with the content you input in Firefox. This does not give the Mozilla any ownership in that content. This last line here basically would prevent them from selling it. They don't have ownership. They're acting on your behalf, and you're giving them the permission to use your data on their behalf. So this is a much clearer line in the sand. Originally, they said, when you upload or input information through Firefox, you hereby grant us non-exclusive royalty-free license to use that information to help you navigate, experience, and interact with online content as you indicate with your use of Firefox. It does not specifically define that Mozilla doesn't have the right to sell your information or won't, whereas this does. I have to say, when I read this, I personally felt that people were a little like they didn't have a privacy policy. They're actually being more clear with what they do than they were previously. Nothing actually changed. And one of the things that I dug up to do that was this right here. This, before you guys roast me, we aren't selling your data. We're giving it away for free. This right here is the most comprehensive browser privacy review I could find. I'm not asking you to agree with its findings. I'm saying this guy did more work than any one of us has at this point. And I'm not asking you to agree with him, and I'm not asking you to agree with me. I wanted to point out that Mozilla Firefox hasn't actually changed. They made a privacy. And I'll get to what I think they could have done better and what I would encourage them to do in the future to avoid these things. All right. So this does a really good study. I like it. in this perspective study, Brave is the best. Second to Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. They group these three all together. Although if you go in my opinion, Firefox is the best out of these, Chrome is the worst, and Safari's somewhere in between Firefox and Chrome. And then Edge and Yandex are the worst by far. And they're all also with used out of the box, like right out of the box. So not with like configuring them, because what he goes into is that Firefox actually gives a lot of control that you can disable those things. So like I was saying with the where it's giving recommendations like this, you can actually disable that in Firefox. You can actually turn that off and not send your data to that search engine. Chrome doesn't give you that. And Safari doesn't give you that option. So in my perspective, Firefox, hopefully a balanced perspective in the argument. Now, where did Firefox go wrong? I think that Firefox went wrong in not making this all on Git and not making it all public and just doing it all at once. They should have involved the community. When you're somebody like Mozilla, when you're a big open source project and you want to make these changes, you start with the community. You don't let the community find out because you made a pull request. You don't let the community find out because you changed your website. You start with a discussion and you end with the change to the website. You skip that step. That's like the biggest thing. And I've seen this happen so many times. You have to start with the community because people assume, look, if you went to your community and said, hey guys, look, we don't have a privacy policy and we want to be more clear. We want to be more clear with how we're using your data and why. Let's do that. Nobody would have assumed bad. The thing is, though, when you go and you remove those things, and I'm assuming, I'm taking the stance here in this conversation that Mozilla had the utmost intentions. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm saying if they did have the utmost things, when you just go and do it without involving the community that you're there to support, that's what you're doing. It seems nefarious. Okay? So my biggest thing, and I've seen this happen a time and time before, just involve the community. One of the things I would say is have your privacy policy in Git. Make that changed. Make it versionable. Okay? When there's a change to it, this is something, if I ever make any services or anything, my terms of service and privacy policy will all be in Git. So you can see when there's changes, when there's pull requests to make changes, when it's very transparent when, why, and what is done. If you're an open source project, you need to have this. I think if Mozilla if Mozilla was actually acting in the high ground they say they were, that's how they should have done. You should have started with the community instead of starting with your website. Like I said, that's my take on it. I would love to know your guys' take. Do you disagree? If you do, go ahead. Hit me up on Discord. Just recently, we got a fantastic article called Distributed System Programming Has Stalled. I thought that we might cover it tomorrow. If we have time, we might cover it tomorrow. So I know I haven't gotten a chance to respond. I got we rescued a dog. I've been super busy with that. But I haven't responded on Discord. But please do bring these up. If you think that I have a bad take on the Mozilla Firebox, I tried to bring you guys what happened and my take on it. And I'm about out of time. So I gotta move. All right. Let's talk about the two things that didn't really fit into a category, but I thought this was interesting. Yeah, that I thought was interesting. NVIDIA's poor RTX 50 compute test results due to missing 32-bit OpenCL support, says Passmark. Interesting. So originally, and I had reported on this, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up was that the RTX 50s actually tested poorly. And this is actually really cool to see this being brought, that the OpenCL support was brought to 64-bit. That's actually really, really cool to see happen. Because yeah, if people didn't realize, there is no 32-bit CUDA anymore. So not on RTX 50s. Which all of that would fall back onto the CPU. So don't do that. Don't they also have an issue with something like 0.5% of the chips have missing pipelines? I was tracking this one. Maybe there's a separate issue. I'll have to look into it. I will report next Friday. I do try to keep up to date on stuff I've reported on in the past. So this is just like, just an FYI. I know I reported on the poor RTX, the Passmark support or poor performance. And so I wanted to report on like a follow up on that. I will have to look into if there's also some missing pipelines. It's laptop ones, and NVIDIA is denying it. Well, NVIDIA will deny it until they can't. Let me tell you how big companies work. A big company lawyer will say, you deny that until there is proof. Okay. I'm not saying that it's true either. I'm just saying that they will deny it unless they... anyways. Another article that came to mind and I wanted to talk about was Amazon CEO Andy Jassy blames middle managers for fingerprints on everything as layoffs mount. All right. Why is this interesting? What Andy Jassy is saying when he says fingerprints on anything is that middle managers are being busybodies, being involved in every single meeting that they can be involved, having pre-meetings for meetings and things like this. And I find this interesting because what a lot of people at Amazon are finding is that their managers are, at least this is my understanding, is that they're middle managers, they're directors, and I don't consider engineering managers to be middle management. They're just like the line level management. So like your directors and vice presidents would be your middle management. Your directors, your senior directors, your vice president, your senior vice presidents, your, whatever. Those would be your middle management. And the thing that I would say here is, if this is true, you've done a bad job at supporting your middle management. And you've made the goals of middle management ambiguous. My job at middle management is to facilitate my people being empowered, being empowered to make the decisions that they need to make, being empowered to do the things that they need to and say yes or no to the things that they need to say yes or no to, and whatnot. So if your middle management isn't doing that, what is it doing? I'm asking a question. I don't honestly know. And if you're not empowering, now this is the next step, is You have to empower your middle management to do that. One of the ways that you do that is by how you measure the performance of your middle managers. If your performance is how many things that they have their fingerprints on, well, then you're going to get middle managers that have their fingerprints on a lot of stuff. If you do it by how many people that they have under them, then they're going to try to hire as many people as they can because that directly relates to their performance. You have to make sure that it's clear to middle management what their priorities are. You have to make sure that they're empowered to achieve those priorities. And if they're not, that's on you. That's on upper management, not middle management. So anyways, I read this. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts. Go ahead and jump in the Discord and tell me your thoughts. Is that your experience with middle management? Do they just get in the way of you doing your job? Andy JC said, so you end up with these people being in the pre-meeting, for the pre-meeting, for the pre-meeting, for the decision meeting, and not always making recommendations and owning things the way we want the type of lead ownership. Who has pre-meetings for meetings? This sounds ridiculous. And this sounds like you have an organizational issue that's not about whether you have managers or not. I honestly don't know how many managers you have per person, and I don't care. This is a completely different issue. You can blame the number of managers that you have, Andy JC, but I would recommend that you look at how you encourage your managers to run, how you encourage the middle management to operate, and what you're asking them to make a priority. Hopefully you guys don't have that type of middle management. That would suck. You know what would be worse? Having me as your middle management. Oh, that would be worse. Well, Sergeant Pepper, I think this is actually why you should have two different promotion tracks. And they do. You can have a technical and a management one. If you're in a technical one, you're never a middle management. Like technical would not be in the management role. To be middle management, you have to take the management side. In my opinion. Now, maybe he's not talking about that. Maybe he's talking about the middle management technical ones. I'm not sure. The ICs. Nothing in his thing really specified. So maybe that's a bad assumption on my part. I've had a few pre-meetings. Yeah. It actually really annoys me when people are trying to convince me to join their side before a meeting, because I take meetings and communication very seriously, and I try to just be honest. And the thing is, I want to just be honest in that meeting too. I think it's really important for people to be able to come together and disagree and have those good conversations. It doesn't mean that we'll always agree. It doesn't mean that we'll always come to the same decision in the end. What it does mean is that we're able to come to the table and disagree, which is difficult to do. You have to have a lot of trust to do that. But do you know what was going to break down trust faster than anything? Is if you have pre-meetings to agree with people before you come to meetings to take people's sides, because now you're playing politics, and politics is one of the first things to take down trust. So my policy on politics is I don't play politics. Now, that is a way of playing politics. I realize that and I understand that, but I take it for a very specific reason. I am who I am, and I'm very honest, and I want anybody to be able to trust me. I take that seriously. And because I think that gives us these conversations where we can come together and disagree and have a productive conversation. Not always, but a lot of times have a productive conversation disagreeing. All right. I have to get going. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for the news. I hope you enjoyed it. I was a little rushed. Today. All right. And tomorrow, join me. We're going to try to run some Rust code that's just a string inside of Wasm. I want to try just in time with Rust, or we might try an easier language, but where it's just we have a string and we're going to compile it. This is going into the Null cloud. Or this is like investigation into some of the stuff that we might do in the future for the Null cloud. So it should be fun. I've read a little on it. I'm kind of prepared to do it. I haven't written Rust for a little while, so it'll be good intro back into Rust. So yeah. So if you guys want to join me for that, I'm gonna have fun. Am I making Rust script? No. No Rust script. I really want garbage collected Rust. I know that I keep harping on this, and I just haven't found garbage collected Rust. No, OCaml is not garbage collected Rust. It might have a similar type system, but it is very, very, very different. Very different. I cannot. I got to go. I have to get going. Thank you guys. See you guys tomorrow, and thanks for all the support. You guys rock. Bye.